Welcome back to the shop, everyone. This week's video takes place in 2026, week 12, March 16th through March 22nd, and we are getting back into some electrical. So I'm just kind of working at the back at the relay block. So I think I'm just adding some zip ties, just kind of make the wires a little bit cleaner for the moment while I kind of reorganize things. And yeah, just gonna get a bunch of electrical work done, which is a nice thing. So let's see here, what are we gonna work on next? Yes, so that is my little terminal strip block, and just kind of getting it up into place. I think I needed some 832 8 by 32 bolts or nuts or screws to get that in there, and I just used some cheap ones that I found. So just kind of getting that held up into place, and I'm just kind of going over it and figuring out everything that's going on with it, because there's a bunch of stuff going on there. I've got 8 wires going in to control the 8 relays, plus I've got 2 just kind of pass-throughs. Alright, so the next thing that I'm doing is I am getting my new door lock module set up. So previously I had door poppers on this, so I had shaved handles on the outside, but for drag racing that's actually a terrible thing, so I'm going back to having handles on the outside. So that means I need locks. So this is going to be a power lock module to drive the locks. So just kind of getting some of the wiring set into place. My plan is to also have that box pop the trunk, so I shouldn't have to use the key every time like I do now. There is a solenoid in the trunk, I just need to hook up to it. So just kind of getting that in place and get some of those wires, roughly into place. I'm not going to fully terminate them yet. So one of the things that I mentioned in the last video is I want some interior lights in this. Now, I'd already bought some LEDs. These were just cheap LED lights I got from Summit. You can see they're about 12 to 18 inches long, something like that. But I just want to see how bright they are. So just trying to test it out on the battery, but it wasn't working. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? So I grab my multimeter, and I look at this, and I realize that I had the wires backwards because the black clip was on the positive for some reason. So that could have been bad, especially since obviously I wasn't paying attention. Yeah, so with the lights off, just holding that in there, it lights up the interior of the car pretty darn good. As you can see there, I can see the whole fuse box. So I'm just kind of cleaning this bar off, and I'll get a couple of LEDs just in the car. I just went off on this tangent for some reason. There was no reason, like I don't need to put lights in the car at this exact moment in time. But I might have a little bit of ADD, and so that's why I did this. But yeah, so just checking that light again, and just the one light, like it lights up the inside pretty good. Like that was just one light. So the plan is I'll have one on the right triangulation bar where I have it now. I'll put one on the left. I think I'm probably going to do one on this middle bar, because if I have it on this middle bar, I can turn the lights on when I fill up gas at night and have a little bit more light in the back. And then I will probably put, I've usually got padding on the top bar, so I'll probably put them horizontally on the roof bars. And the top of the halo. Maybe I'll throw one on the harness bar. I don't know. I'm gonna put some LEDs in this, but that's really not important right now. So right now what I'm doing is I'm just labeling some of the wires in here and just trying to figure out where I need them to go. And the reason why I'm labeling it is because it's kind of important to figure out exactly where I want some of these things. For example, my vacuum pump that I may or may not have or need needs 6 amps, but like my switch panel, because those are just triggering relays, like I really only need 1 amp, so I could put both those things on one 7.5 amp circuit and be fine. So it's just good to label these. And whereas my battery charger, those are going to be like 3 amps each, so I probably want those on a 10 amp circuit on their own. So here I'm just doing a little wiring cleanup. I'm putting some heat shrink at the end of the wires and making sure I've got them all labeled and just kind of getting them tidied up a little bit. Alright, now it's time to get all of my tools and my crimpers and everything like that moved over to the other side. And the reason why is I'm going to start terminating some of these wires at the ECU. So that's going to be, shock sensors. I do have some spares. I'm just going to put ends on them. I'm not actually going to run them into anything. And the reason being is I could potentially need like a high input, which is going to be like a plus 12 input, or a low input, which is a ground input, and I just don't know what I would potentially use it for. So I don't want to wire it into a pin that can only do high. If it's gonna be a ground, I'll be able to move it around if I ever need it. So for the most part, this is going to be stuff that you've seen me do before. I'm just going to pull wires out as need, cut them short to length, strip them, crimp them, give them a little pull test, make sure that the wires don't pull out of the terminals, and then just put them in their place. Before I fire the car, or before I put the terminals into the firewall and the fenders, I will do a full test and pinout just to make sure everything is where I think it is. But I don't think there's really too much more to talk about at this exact moment in time, because I'm just going to be doing some wiring here. So I figured since I'm not always the best at getting the good camera angles, I'd bring it in the car and bring it a little bit closer, but so you can still see what I'm doing. Yeah, so we have a good amount of wiring done. There is still more that I need to do, but some of the wiring that I need to do, I kind of need to have the engine and transmission in place to figure out where some things are going to go. So I'm kind of not at a standstill. There's still some more wiring I could do, but it's a good point to stop. And we are going to transition into prepping for paint. So there are some things in the firewall here, like that is where one of the connectors goes through. I want to make sure that all of the filler is cleaned up ahead of time. And man, there is a lot of filler on this. There's like 1/8 of an inch in some of the areas. Not proud of it, but it is what it is. But yeah, so I just want to make sure that the filler is as cleaned up as it can be ahead of time, because I don't want to have to be modifying or changing the filler and the paint when it's all painted and done. That would probably be a lot harder. So just poke some holes now. I know a lot of this is going to be covered. That middle hole is where my throttle cable goes, and so I will have to drill that out larger in the future, but that's okay. The little bit that I drill out, I can put a little black in there. The filler would be a lot harder to do. Yeah, so now I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to tape up the doors, back tape them, get plastic on them, just like you've seen me do before, and we're getting ready to paint this thing. So as I was taping, I realized there were some areas where I had added some filler, but I never actually went and sanded it. So this is a perfect time. Let's just go through. Let's get all the areas that I need sanded. There's some areas in the front, I think. There was this area. So let's just get that done because we are painting this week. There is a very narrow window. The Friday of this particular week was supposed to be about 14 degrees at its hottest, and you're really not supposed to paint under 13 degrees. And, you know, the rest of the weekend at that point in time was going to be shitty. It was going to be like 10 or 11 degrees. It was not quite where I wanted it. I probably could have gotten away with it, but I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a day off work. The temperature is good enough. I'm going to just make it work. I'm going to paint it. So let's get everything I can done evenings and week or in the evenings leading up to Friday. So now I'm going to do my best to get this bench as prepped as I can. So I'm going to put some, plastic up. I'm going to cover it as much as I can, much more than I did in previous times. Trying to be a little bit smarter when I do things, for the second or third time. So plastic's gonna go down the bench, and then I'm gonna go get all my paint, kind of get everything laid out, get everything sorted, get some pictures for Instagram, that sort of stuff, and then just get ready for paint. All right, so I think this is Friday morning. I'm doing final prep for paint. So I've got just a gray Scotch-Brite pad, and I'm just going over the car and scuffing everything before I do a sealer coat. The reason being is I sprayed the last sealer or epoxy probably like a week prior, so it's hard, it's cured. And general rule of thumb is you're supposed to scuff it. I probably could have gotten away with like an 800 grit sandpaper, or just a gray Scotch-Brite. And as I'm going along, I'm finding a few areas where I may just want to sand it a little bit more just to make it just that little bit better. As I've said before, the paint is not going to be perfect on here, but it will be good enough. So as you can see, there's a few areas where I'm just like, okay, I'm just going to sand this down a little bit more, just kind of make it a little bit nicer. I don't really want to have to deal with it once it's painted, because that's a lot harder. And yeah, we're just going to keep scuffing everything down. Once I am done scuffing everything down, after I found all the little areas to fix, I am going to take my wax and degreaser. I will wax and degrease the whole car, and then I will use my air chuck to blow the car off and kind of make all of the wax and degreaser throughout the entire thing evaporate. That way there's nothing lingering, and that's my best chance for my sealer to stick. All right, it is time to get in this. So I'm going to start mixing up the sealer. So the sealer is my epoxy primer and with the hardener. And as I was going through this, there was a bunch of hard stuff at the bottom of this can. So I kind of have a feeling that as I was, doing the primer, it wasn't really giving proper coverage. I may not have had the best formula for this. It seems like I was kind of painting at a disadvantage here. Maybe that's why I didn't feel that it covered as well. Maybe that's why it was too chunky. I don't know. But whatever, we're here. So I'm mixing up the paint. I'm mixing up the hardener or the activator. And then I'm also reducing it by 20% with just the regular paint reducer. And that makes it a sealer, not a epoxy primer. It'll still seal the metal just fine. There's no problem with that going over. It's just kind of a thinner mixture. So, once that's mixed, I will get this sprayed out on the car. Actually, I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a tack rag and just go over the car and just make sure I got all the dust off of it. Just gives me the best chance possible for getting as good of a paint job as I can. So you can see I'm in my silly paint suit. This is just like a cheap $10 paint suit off of Amazon. I just wanted it because I didn't want to be dragging my clothes into it. When I did the interior, I was wearing my hoodie, and several times I dragged my hoodie through it. So I was just like, okay, let's not do that. So what I'm doing right there is I was just trying to figure out how I'm going to spray this. What's going to be my plan of attack for, what area do I spray? How do I spray this? Because, spraying the top first is actually the smartest, because then I'm not potentially dragging the hose through the paint on the side. But obviously I didn't start there. I started on the bottom, kind of working my way up. And then I think I'll probably jump onto the top. I don't know. But just laying a nice, even, quick coat. This isn't like super heavy or anything. It's just to seal up any of the metal, all of the Bondo, and give us a good base for the color. Cleaning the spray gun is just something that we have to do between each coat. It's kind of tedious. The gloves that I have aren't the greatest. They're not super chemical resistant, so the gun wash actually just burns through the gloves and melts them. But this is going to be a reoccurring part of this next part of the video, because between each coat we need to clean the gun. And so I've got a sealer coat. After the sealer's done, I'm going to do the black base. Once that's done, I do the inner coat clear with red metal flake. Once that's done, I do the red on the bars. Once that's done, I clear. So we're doing like 5 different products. So we're doing like 5 gun cleans. It's not that bad. I actually don't mind it all that much. It's just, just takes a bit of work, and I wish I had better gloves. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mask off all of the bars. Now, the reason why I'm doing the body black first is because the bars in the back here are going red, as well as the tube front end is going red. So my thought process is, if I do the body and the firewall black first, I run less chance of like knocking into the freshly painted tube front end as I'm painting in the firewall. Just because it's kind of some tight areas, and in the past I haven't been that great with my body placement, and I've kind of like nudged freshly painted stuff. Of course the red would be dry by the time I get to that, but I just figured I think that'll be the best plan of attack. It's also the biggest area, so if I have any problems, I can stop very quickly. But yeah, so just gotta tape off all the bars. I think I'm gonna fire the person who decided to do the body black and then the bars red, because masking stuff off, it's so time consuming and boring and sucks, and you got to make sure you got all the right stuff. And yeah, that guy, his judgment is probably pretty impaired, I would say. So before I paint the black, I'm going to go over everything with a tack rag again, just to make sure there's no dust or anything on here, at least as best I can. Because I think, you know, I'm not good at this. This is my first time doing this. I want to give myself the best chance. Now then, I will say I hate doing body work. I don't like, I mean, the metal work is fine. I kind of enjoy doing the metal work. But the Bondo, the filling, the sanding, I do not enjoy that at all. That is just not fun. Painting, however, I actually really, really enjoy painting. You know, if I could get to a point where I just have somebody else doing all the body work and all I have to do is come in and spray after them, I could live with that. That would be pretty fun. But yeah, having to sand and fill and sanding sucks. I think that's the part that I dislike the most. But I really enjoy this painting, and you know, so far I've got the black and it is laying down what I think is pretty good. I don't really have much to go off of other than, you know, my experience here. So one of the main things that I notice is that as I'm painting, the roof ends up being pretty streaky. You can kind of see it in this shot where there's some lighter white lines running down the roof. The rest of the car didn't really seem to have this issue, but it was pretty pronounced on the roof. Now it is a carbon fiber roof, so maybe it's just absorbing the paint a bit more. I kind of thought that the sealer and the primer and all of that would take care of it. but I don't know. Fortunately, I'm going to, my plan was at least 2 coats on the entire car, potentially 3. So I get my 2 coats on, and then I go around, and there's just a few areas where I need to add a little bit more paint. So I go ahead and do that. I actually do I think a 3rd and a 4th coat on the roof. So what I do is, I do the second spray on the car. For the 3rd coat on the roof, instead of going that same kind of like front to back, I go side to side, because I'm like, well, I want to try and get more coverage on it. And then my 4th and final coat, I go back to front again. So that's kind of my thought process as I'm going through this. I'm trying my best to be very diligent with the hose and with the gun and everything else. Just because in the past I've been pretty cavalier with it, and it's come back to bite me in the ass. I can say now that it's all done, fortunately, I didn't have any issues with the hose or anything like that. So after this final little bit of black, I am pretty happy with how it turned out. So we are going to clean the gun after I make a massive mess, because that's just what I do. Yeah, so after I, throw a little bit of plastic down, you can also see that, the first time that I squatted in that paint suit, I split it right up the middle. It's still okay at the moment, but it eventually just ends up getting caught on more stuff than not, so I ditch it just for my straight jeans and a shirt. It was a great idea, but in the end it was only like $10, so I knew it was going to be cheap. I didn't think it was going to rip the first time I squatted, but it did. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead and clean the gun. As I mentioned before, this is a common occurrence. Yeah, so gun's cleaned. I let everything kind of sit and dry for a little bit. So now I'm going to mix up the intercoat clear with the red metal flake. And this is what's gonna, just add a little bit of detail to my car. I really like this. I think it turned out super nice. I didn't do a ton of metal flake. I just did a little bit. There's a few areas of the car where I'm planning on doing a little bit more heavy metal flake, so kind of on the hood scoop and the vents. And then I have an idea for the door, where I will probably do the first coat of intercoat clear, let that dry, and then I'll do something a little bit heavier in a specific area on the door. But yeah, so just mixing this up. I mixed up way too much. I am at a point where I don't know how much I do or do not need to mix up. So I mixed up like a full thing. I could have done half as much and still would have had way extra, I think. But that's all part of learning. So once this all gets mixed up, I'll get the gun all put together, and then I will spray this inner coat clear with the metal flake. So yeah, even like before when I was shooting black, I'm shooting the inner or the red metal flake under the car, even though really absolutely nobody will ever see it. Unless you're under there with a flashlight, like even just like on the road, it's going to be dark under there, so you probably wouldn't see it. But I know it's there. It's there. Now that's sprayed, let's clean the gun. And while we're cleaning the gun, just letting everything kind of sit and dry. All right, now that that's all dried, it's time to untape the bars in the front and the rear. And then I will kind of loosely, roughly tape off the body in the front here. And then after I tape off the front, I will go underneath and tape off the body, because now I'm going to paint all of these bars red. So the same red that I have in the cage. So it kind of ties the whole theme together. The, you know, all the round tubes on the front end and in the car are all going to be red. So one thing that I was considering doing when I was taping up the bars, and I realized that's going to be a lot of work and I want to do it, is I was considering making the engine plate tabs black like the body, but I was just kind of like, it's going to be a lot of work. I'll just make them red. I'll just make them the same. I'm not too worried about it. So the mid plate tabs are going to be black, but the engine plate tabs are going to be red. I'm okay with it. It's one of those details where I could have gone either way, and I was just like, I just went with the slightly easier for the work that I was doing this particular day. So I was pleasantly surprised as I was pulling everything off. None of the sealer coat really pulled off. When I did the interior, a little bit of it did. So I feel like this paint job is gonna last. Whether it does or not, who knows? So yeah, now I'm just going to tape up a good chunk of the body. I don't show it, but there was a couple of areas on the body that I actually missed painting. So I just kind of loosely leave those and then get them covered in red. It's not perfect, but again, this is under the car. I'm really the only one that's ever going to know about it. Alrighty, now that we got it taped up front and back, it is time to mix the red, and then we are going to spray the red. And it just so happens to be that I use up the last of my red here, and I use up the last of my black. I'd already bought more had I needed it, but it was just it just worked out that I ended up using the last of both, and it was like, you know, the perfect amount type of thing. So very, very lucky there. I don't know what it is, but this red just sprays down so nice and like so much better than the black, I find. Coverage just seems to be better. I've had issues spraying the black in the past with it just being like, I don't know, almost like thin or like solventy or blotchy. But this red, it just lays down absolutely beautifully. It almost makes me want to paint a car red, honestly. So with 2 quick coats of red, we are going to go ahead and clean the gun out. And with the red being sprayed, once we pull all the plastic off, it will be time to clear coat the car. So again, like when I'm pulling the tape and the plastic off of the sealer coat, I was pleasantly surprised that, none of the actual like black paint came off with the tape. Although if you look on this bar here, I did miss an area, and so there's still gray on that bar. That's okay. I will touch it up. I still have the red paint in the cup, so I'm just going to take a brush, and there's a few areas front and rear that I will touch up just with a brush. It's not the best, but it works. And this just makes it so that everything is just perfect, because I'm not a good taper apparently. So yeah, same thing in the back. Let's just take a brush, and there's a few areas that I wasn't happy with, so let's just touch them up. And I know it's under the car, no one's gonna see it but me, but I saw it. I noticed that there were some missing spots, so I'm doing it. I'm fixing it. All right, and now we are going to prep for clear. So I do a nice light coat, and then I do a heavy coat. I'm always worried about runs, but what I've come to realize is I could probably go a little bit heavier and slower on my paint passes with a little bit more overlap, and I'd be all right. That being said, I will point out something that happens at one point in time, which just kind of like, I'm cruising through this, I'm feeling good, and then it just completely deflates me. Yeah, I'll talk about that when it happens. So what I'm doing right now is I'm spraying the floor with water to help hold the dust down. And I'm also spraying the side plastic to try and keep as much dust on the plastic as possible. So what happens is, as you spray, if there's any kind of dust on the floor, it really moves around in the shop. So by spraying the floor with water, it actually helps dampen all that dust. And I had noticed when I was spraying the colors that there was quite a bit of dust just floating around in the air. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna, do a little bit to help protect myself here. Yeah, so we're just mixing the clear up, and as soon as it's mixed, we are going to get to spraying. So I'm going to give myself the best possible chance for a good paint job, and I'm going to take a tack rag to clean off any dust that may be on the car at the moment. As I said, there was a bunch of dust flying around in the air. I've wet the ground to try and help alleviate that, but let's just take a tack rag and do my best to clean off any dust that may be on the car at the moment. And now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, let's get some clear on this car. So I do the first pass, you know, fairly quick. It's a fairly light coat, but it's just to get it on there and get it sticky. When I start running the second coat, I go a little bit slower and a little bit heavier. And I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out in the end. So right here, I'm mixing up some clear, and the camera started to fall forward. Thankfully, I caught it before it fell like onto the car. I probably would have had to redo the whole tape job in the back, all the plastic. You know, it probably would have chipped the paint. It would have been a bad deal for me, but fortunately, I caught the camera as it was falling, and it didn't actually fall onto the car. So yeah, this is still just the first coat, I believe. I had to mix up a little bit more clear in the middle of it. And yes, of course, clearing underneath the car. All right, so this is the second coat, and I go a little bit slower, as you can kind of see, and the coat's a bit heavier, and I'm looking at this thinking to myself, man, this looks badass. Yeah, I'm really happy with the way it's turning out so far. Getting a lot of coverage. I'm not seeing any real concerning runs or anything. So I'm kind of taking my time and slowing it down a bit just to get a little bit more product on. And the reality is I could probably go for a third coat on all of this and it wouldn't be a bad thing. But, you know, so far so good. Everything's, you know, turning out pretty good. And you can see the right side of that roof is pretty shiny compared to the left side. So yeah, getting the clear on the roof and right there. I don't know if you really saw it, but as I came down, I kind of tripped on the ladder. My foot slammed into that plastic. I caught myself, but if you go back and look, you'll see as soon as I trip on the plastic, a big cloud of dust comes off of the plastic sheet right onto my freshly cleared front end, the roof, everything. It was at that point in time I was just like, well, I'm going to finish clearing the car. There's not a whole lot I can do right now. What's done is done. The dust is in the clear. So I might as well just keep on going. And then if it's a big deal, hopefully I can wet sand it out. And if I wet sand and it doesn't all come out and I end up having to, you know, put another layer of clear on the car, that's okay too. But you know what? After it dried, I was just like, you know what? This isn't terrible. I think I'll be able to wet sand it out. And if there's a little bit of dust in there, well, it's a paint job that I did in my garage, and that's just okay. So yeah, we're gonna clean the gun for the final time. Clear is done, and then we're just gonna let this dry for a few hours. So the paint has been drying for a little bit, so I just want to remove all of the plastic and the tape before it fully cures. I think if it all fully cured, it might be a little bit harder to remove this because the paint where it, goes between the panel and like the plastic and the tape would be a lot more solid and might not, tear as easily. So after it's kind of dry to the touch, it's the perfect time to remove all of this plastic. And man, I gotta say, this car with the interior bars, the exterior bars being red, it just looks so good. And the pictures on my Instagram, it does not do it justice. This car it looks really good. I'm very happy with how this came out. Yes, there is dust in some of the paint in some areas, but I'm not gonna let that bother me because it looks so good. So this is a couple days later, I think. I sprayed on the Friday. The Saturday, I just let the shop heat up and let all the paint clear. So this is Sunday, and I can't really do too much around the car. The paint is still curing, but I'm gonna clean the shop. So I'm going to start by throwing some plastic over the car, which I later found out is probably a really bad idea because the clear, while it's dry to the touch, isn't fully cured. Fortunately, I don't think my paint was affected at all. But yeah, so I'm going to put plastic over the car, and then for the rest of this video, I am just cleaning the shop. At some point in time, I'm going to show some parts on the bench, maybe under the car. You don't need to worry about any of those boxes and parts. That'll be for next week's video. So just enjoy the rest of this video of me cleaning the shop. This is a big part of building a car, is cleaning up. And especially after, all the body work, this place was a mess. There was dust everywhere. So even though I put that plastic up, it was not airtight on the top or the bottom, the front or the back. So while the majority of it was in like the main area, there was still a layer of dust everywhere in the shop. I doubt for as long as I own this house, I will ever get all of the dust out. That's just the way it is. Well, folks, as I said, don't you worry about any of them boxes or any of those parts. That'll be for next week. But with that is all the time that we have for this week. So as always, if you've stuck around this long, I'd like to thank you for viewing, and we'll see you in the next one.